Valley. Welcome to the Live with Kimberly show on the Voice of San Joaquin Community Radio on 89.5 KBCC on the FM radio. Tracy, California, can you hear us? This is the Voice of San Joaquin. I'm Kimberly Warmsley, alongside a very, 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 very special guest today. Destiny Sheppard. She is a community organizer. She is a youth advocate, and she's joining in with me today on a very, very, very special conversation, a needed conversation. We're just going to get to the root of it. So I called Destiny today, and I wanted her to come on the show and kind of chat with us a little bit about the issue that happened here in Stockton with the I don't know. I've heard riots. I heard brawl. I heard civil disobedience. I've heard it all in the last 24 hours. I don't know if any of you guys have heard about the situation that happened yesterday at the mall, where hundreds of kids gathered, and there was a huge issue. Law enforcement was involved. The mall was shut down. There were some incidents of individuals getting injured. There was a report of a woman and her children whose car was nearly carjacked. Since then, the mall has issued a new policy calling for, and I quote, anyone who is not over the age of 18 years old to be accompanied by an adult over the age of 21 in order to go to the mall in the evening time. Things have trickled down as such, where even the buses are no longer going to the mall. And so there was, and I'm pulling it up right now, there was a memo that was released from San Joaquin County Regional Transit District, is it district? I think maybe not, RTD. And it quoted, quote, buses will not stop northbound or southbound at Delta College and Yokich Avenue, which is, basically at the mall. This also includes several bus stops and lines, and so the after effect of all of this is really, really, really kind of troublesome. And so I wanted to spend some time to talk about the issue and what can we do to address it. There's been so many comments. I don't know have you read the comments?
Just a little so far. I think one thing is looking from outside in.
Right.
This is another headline that we have for Stockton of being like this terrible city that nobody wants to come to. And it's just like it's a hurtful thing, because I want to stay out here and I want to eventually raise kids out here, but it's very difficult because we have these news stories that get on Facebook, and they get like all these thousands of viewers when that's not all of us. That's not the main thing.
I think that one post a young lady posted had over 16,000 views of the situation. In retrospect, a young man who does a blog, Gabriel, I can't think of Gabriel's last name. He does the Stockton. I can't think of the name of his news sitcom, but he, in retrospect, posted a listing of great things that have happened in the city in the last week. But you're right; it's like the negative effects of it is troublesome. Mm-hmm. But there's been a lot of posts, and I must admit, the continuous posting of beat 'em. Let's beat him. Let's beat him. Let's beat him. And I'm just like, okay. And after we beat him, what are we going to do next?
Yeah.
And so I want to just kind of talk about what can we do to bring solutions this troubled group. I don't think that this group necessarily reflects all of the youth.
Right.
However, it's a conversation that definitely is trending. So, what are your thoughts?
Because we have limited amount of resources for these children to actually come out, celebrate things, get together from across districts. We have these results where we get together for fighting, for violence. And so another thing within the school system is we have a lot of people from different areas and districts coming together for problems. And so within these schools, we don't have enough restorative practices that, once a child does hit another, or if they have an argument, or with a faculty member, they get suspended. And then after 3 to 4, 5 days, then they get to come back to school, but nothing's ever resolved.
Right.
And so if we could get some type of a restorative person that can come in these schools and actually solve these issues, or have the conversation of how can we get closer to solving these issues, because drama stems from these kids, but nobody's talking about how do we get away from these problems. What do we do after somebody talks about you, or what do we do if this girl spreads your business and you feel embarrassed about it, or what do we do if your home life is so what's the word for it? So difficult that you lash out in school. Like, how do we have these conversations? And restorative practices is something that we don't practice within the Stockton districts as well. From my experience of going to high school a few years ago, we didn't have that. We use violence as a way to solve the problems. And so if we could start within the schools where they spend almost 8 hours a day,
Right.
That could be one start.
And thank you for that, because a lot of times I like to bring guests on as well to look at two sides of the spectrum, right? And so one thing that I definitely agree with you on is the fact that the restorative justice approach does not include violence or aggression. And be as if it may, some people believe in the spanking and the beatings or whatever. However, when we're talking about aggressive situations, I would really, really, really behoove people to consider dealing with aggression. Like, there's a fine line. Like, I think that we don't have enough conversations. So you suspend a child for, being aggressive with another child. You get 5 days. Child A gets 5 days. Child B gets 5 days. They get suspended, and then they come back to school.
Nothing.
But no one ever talks about the issue.
Nope.
That's a problem. That's a problem. And I just feel like, I don't know about you, but I think that we need to spend more time communicating and having conversations with our youth. I think that more opportunities in safe spaces and brave spaces where people can actually talk about what it is that they want to express. I mean, there was a lot of suggestions, but I told someone, I said, has anybody talked to youth and asked them what they want?
Nope.
It's a back in my day theory that may not work in this day. What happened 20 years ago and what was right 20 years ago may not be the right thing 20 years later. You know what I mean? So what kind of things would you, as a youth advocate and someone who like recently graduated from the same type of system, because earlier you mentioned that this happened when you were in high school.
Yes.
So thinking back then to now, what would have been some things that could have been preventative?
One thing I'll say too, I do want to later become like a business owner, and we talked about this before, but like a skating rink or amusement park, somewhere where these kids can actually go. There is a teen center currently that they have, and there is a lot of support systems and programs that they have within the teen center, but it's not the easiest place to get to for these kids, especially with the RTD system. It's not as sufficient as it should be. So
you mean the same RTD system that they just closed? They just
sure did.
Disconnected.
That's exactly who I'm talking about.
Took away like 10 different routes as of yesterday.
Giving students a voice, giving any youth a voice is very hard, because we're quick as adults to be like, no, this is the correct way to do this because I've done it before, and because I did it wrong, this is the correct way, without asking them. And it's like the internet has paved the way so much for incorrect, like being incorrect, and being hypocrites, because as an adult, as I found, becoming one, that I had a lot of people that I looked to, but they just weren't the right source to look to. And if we actually ask these kids, what is something that you really want out of this city? What is something to stop just straight up violence? What's something that you'll actually like doing every weekend? Because they have nothing to do every weekend. So it causes the height of violence. Like, I have nothing else to do. I don't have a lot of resources, because a lot of these kids do come from broken homes. I've had friends, a list of friends from high school, who didn't even get a ride from football games. My mother was the ride for football games. So it's like these youth are hurting at home, and it's like lashing out at school.
Right.
Is the result.
Let's talk about that a little bit too, because that's troublesome. And I have a daughter who's in high school. Will be graduating, class of 2020. One of the things that I want to talk about is poverty and despair. Right. So let's just hypothetically say we bring back these skating rinks and avenues that teens can access, but comes with a cost. Are we really, tapping into the issue? Are we creating a bigger issue? Because there'll still be a group of youth who may be disenfranchised because of affordability.
Yeah.
I want to talk about jobs. I know that I work at a school district, and that's my main priority is working with the youth. And the number one thing that they talk about is jobs. And currently, we struggle with jobs, and people are like commuting to try to get jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a discord between like people who are working longer, because they can't retire because the economy is not as stable and things are going up. So they're in competition with youth getting a job.
Yeah.
Like McDonald's or Burger King or Dollar General or whatever. How can we tap into supporting our youth in getting jobs?
I think by
opening, is that even a concern?
I think it's a huge concern, because I started working when I was 16 at the movie theaters, and that was one way, to do things. But if I did have a skating rink at that time, or if I did have like an amusement park, I would rather work there to build like more people skills. When I was working at the movies, I wasn't building people skills. And it's like, if we don't give the opportunity for these youth to actually build people skills, you can work at a retail shop, but it's not as effective as like I would say a skating rink, because you're always dealing with families, you're always dealing with conflicts because people are coming from around the area. Learning how to skate, that's an ability that a lot of people would love. It's just like even an amusement park, like learning how to work machines, and you're still working with families, you're still getting that that sense of community. And I think it would be very effective if we get more things in Stockton specifically, and I think it would just be a cycle of, if we create more jobs, this could be a cycle of okay, we're trying to create leaders, because we wouldn't want you working at the skating rink for 30, 40 years, but this could be a setting stone for a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old transitioning to be an adult.
Absolutely. And I love that. So creating and building life skills is something that should be incorporated. In fact, sometimes I find it troublesome that it's not. Like, the curriculums have shifted so much throughout the state. Like, they took out home economics and welding and calligraphy and wood shop, et cetera, et cetera. So crafting more skills for the youth, that's excellent. That's excellent. What else do you think?
I think we have to really start talking about the uncomfortable conversation, which is, we know that there are gang members present within, our community, different ones. And so, like, when I was in high school, there was an Asian gang. I won't say the name, but at Bear Creek High School, it was 2014, because I was a junior during that time. And so there was a riot, and students got tased because it got so big. Y'all can check the article too, y'all. Bear Creek High School riot, I believe it was 2014. Fact check me. But this riot was very open. Like, police officers were tasing girls that were no more than 100 pounds.
Hey.
Because the rage was so it was scary. But I think we have to start talking about gangs and getting to these children, because they are young in gangs. They are 14, 15 years old, and they are initiating this because they feel like they have no other choice. And I think, like, that's one topic that we really don't want to discuss, but it's something that we could tackle. But finding that that actual conversation, and for them to be honest, we have to open that up. And I feel like that's the biggest struggle, is how can we get them to talk?
And I think that something that I've experienced with conversations, hard conversations, this is a hard conversation to have, because I feel like people take offense, and the finger pointing and the blaming. However, this is something that has to be talked about. But what about the conversations of why people join gangs, or why people gravitate towards situations that can put them in a compromising or dangerous situation? And so looking back at some of these kids, and not even trying to judge anyone or point any fingers, because no one knows their situation. I think that there was many folks who said, no parental guidance, their parents are garbage, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, how do we really know?
We don't.
And also social media. And the toxicity of social media. Like, sometimes I have to take a break because I feel like it's so toxic. How much has social media, or how much does social media contribute to some of these behaviors, in your opinion, as a youth advocate and someone who is young?
If we really want to open up that conversation, if we just start with like sexuality, because people use social media to kind of open that conversation up to sexuality. Women post pictures that are, revealing. And it starts from a young age, because now Instagram and Facebook, you can actually open an account by being like 13 years old. Oh. And it's not, it's not strict enough to actually find out, well, are you really 13? Are you of age? And so I think 100% most outcomes are from social media. It stems from social media, and it rises, the feed rises because we use social media as that outlet for other people to find out, and it just gets higher and higher. We get more views, we get more shares, and it becomes one of like the main sources why we have these issues, because it's one of the easiest things to access. You can get Wi-Fi anywhere.
Yeah, and also I think as parents, the phones and the tablets have become babysitters.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the conversations?
Yep.
Will Smith, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air did a song called Parents Just Don't Understand.
Yep.
Do you remember that song?
Yeah.
You heard that song? So how much is that holds true with our youth today? Do you feel like there's a discord between parents and our youth?
Definitely.
And for parents out there listening,
yes.
what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, please share, because I feel like it's a blessing and a curse. Like, my mother and my father always sat me down. Like, I had to have 4-hour conversations, 5-hour, when I would like make one mistake.
Wait, say that again, because I think folks in the back need to hear that. Your parents actually did what?
They did 4 or 5 hour conversations for one mistake. So I literally had
sat you down and talked to you.
But it was the worst example, because I compared my life to a lot of my friends. They didn't have that type of relationship with their parents. Like, my mom didn't go for the belt first. She said, why did you do that? Okay, well, did you see how that made me feel? And I'm like, dang, okay. All right, next time I'm not going to think of that, or next time I'm not going to resort to violence straight away.
Right.
And so a lot of my friends did not have that. And I seen that in the household firsthand. When you go over your friend's house and you see how their mom, like, go do the dishes, or you didn't make grades, so, like, no, your friends are not coming over, you're isolated, your phone's gone. It's just like, it's so much you without saying, so why do you think you did this? So did you see how it made me feel? And it's just like the conversation is gone. It's just more to authoritative figure. Like, you're done because I don't like what you did, and so go in your room.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. And I tell people all the time, I've said this so many times, I'm going to say it again. Conversations with your kids are so important.
Yep.
Knowing where your kids are at all times is so important. And then having conversations, even if your kid isn't directly involved, because kids are indirectly involved, because maybe some of their friends are doing what they need to do or whatever. Conversations, I just think that a lot of issues can be resolved if we talk to our youth. And if you don't have kids, or you're young, like Destiny, who's an organizer, having conversations with our kids. I can't tell you how many kids I see in my office that will tell me that their parents don't even talk about these conversations. That's a problem to me, because if we as parents, our mentors, our advocates, our leaders aren't talking to our kids, guess who they're talking to? Maybe those who aren't necessarily doing the most righteous thing.
Yeah. And I think one thing is, like, the faculty that they do confide in, they only could do so much. They only could do so much. Like, I was really close to a lot of my teachers throughout, like, my life from elementary to high school, but you can't be my parent. You're my teacher. You're my PE teacher. You're my music teacher. Like, they only could help so much. They can't raise you. They are with you 8 hours of every day, but it's only so much, because they have 30 to 40 students.
Right.
So it's only so much I could give to you and support you with.
It's complicated. It's complicated, but I would even add on to that. I remember years ago when we had the Big Brothers Big Sister program here, and they closed because they couldn't get enough mentors. So I think the challenge to this issue is for people who have affordability or authority to mentor youth. Why not?
Yeah.
I guess that's what's called a call to action. What other things can you think of that we as a community are doing great, are good at, and what things do you think we as a community can improve on?
I think the access to, I would say one thing that we're doing good on is the access for this year, trying to get kids together. My job currently whoop whoop changes want to shout us out. We're gonna get these conversations started with middle school and high school students about social justice issues. What does it look like to be homeless? What does it look like to be affected by gun violence? There's a lot of programs, especially Fathers and Families, have been advocating for a long over, I think, basically 2 decades, and doing work where they're helping out juveniles. They're helping out doing restorative practices within schools. They're currently they have so many programs within just one, and I think it's just one step, but not a lot are, I would say, going towards this, because not a lot of people know. Like, the good things within Stockton, not a lot of people know about. The policies that are being passed, not a lot of people know about. And it's like, how do we get this to the youth?
Right. And that, again, the issue is so convoluted and so large. I think it's not going to happen overnight.
Not at all.
But being able to be brave and to at least have the conversations about the issues. And I would say too, like, if this is happening every year at the malls, what can we do to mitigate that or to intervene beforehand, before it gets out of control? Someone posted on Facebook, why don't we have a carnival in front of the mall the day after Christmas?
I think that's a great idea. People really go there.
Right. How about do a free concert?
Been waiting for that. I've been waiting for Chris Brown to come out. Shout out Chris Brown, man.
Chris Brown, are you following Live with Kimberly?
Please come. We want you to come.
But I mean, seriously, like, we let's tap in to actual solutions instead of pointing fingers, playing the blame game, and last but not least, like, resorting to just violence. I mean, violence feeds violence.
Yes.
And again, I'm not trying to minimize the issues and those who were impacted or affected, but we can do so much better.
Yeah. One thing I will add, I don't know if you noticed on the video, but it was a flashback for me to see the police lined up in front of the door. It was like a quick swipe, but there was like a line of police that were lined up, blocking the door as these kids were, some were like trying to hold their friends back, some were fighting, some were just trying to move around because the cars were literally going in between these kids, honking at these kids. But it reminded me of the civil rights movement, and how, the cops stood and they were just like, they were waiting to beat. They were waiting to get the call, like, okay, can we move in? Can we just like hit all these people? Like, let's just move in. And it was just like, it was hard for me to watch that, because I'm like,
it was intense.
Because it was kind of like a trigger, because that could have been me if I was there. If I'm trying to grab my child, or if I'm trying to grab, one of my friends, my cousins, we could have all been beaten because of the things that's transpired, because it's a riot. There's so many people there. And it's like, it's trying to solve, the issue of police brutality has been a very long conversation, but it's scary for me to like see something like that, because I'm scared for the kids. Like, I don't know if they're gonna open fire. I don't know if they're just gonna beat kids. Now it's just like a guessing game.
And I think for me, as a parent, and and even just working in the high schools, like looking at that video and not knowing what the aftermath was or the consequences were, and the fights and the injuries, it's like, man, we have to do better for our youth. We have to do better for our kids. We have to have these conversations. We cannot just talk about, line them up and spank them and whatever. Where, I just feel like, where is the conversation in that? Like, I had a conversation with my daughter and her friends about it, and they were like, wow, that was, that's crazy. We would never do anything, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But just even conversing with them in hopes that that conversation would lead to a conversation with another youth, that would lead to a conversation with another youth about the possible consequences of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if the police were to respond and got aggressive? And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what if anything could have happened?
Anything could have.
And we want to prevent these type of circumstances, but it's going to take so many different levels of intervention and support, and it from more resources to jobs to mentorships to activities. Like, all stones have to be unturned.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about? I'll talk about the changes. So, just some upcoming. Just give us some insight track of what's in store for 2020.
We are so excited. We are reaching across Stockton. So all districts. We're trying to reach out to everybody: Manteca, Lincoln, Lodi, Stockton Unified. We're reaching out to everybody. We want children to come together from 6th grade to senior high school, and we're trying to get these conversations started of how can we make this city safe again for these youth, because a lot of youth that I've talked to already have said that they don't feel safe, but only in their homes they feel safe. And so we're going to have these conversations that are difficult, but we want to get to a conclusion, and it's youth-led. So youth are creating a conclusion for their city themselves. And
Love
so
it.
we're excited. We're starting in January 4th. Changes, it's at changes.org if you want to look up and see what we're doing so far. It's a Saturday program, so if you have nothing to do on Saturday, please come see us. We'll have your kids from 8 hours, 9 to 4 p.m.
Saturday?
Yes.
6th grade too?
Mhm.
Oh, I got somebody for you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And I'm hoping that the changes and these courageous conversations and brave spaces will be an outlet for youth who may need that additional support and mentorship. Is deeply needed in Stockton. And I hope that as we continue into the 2020, we are going to be changing not only the narrative, but the narrators by empowering our youth to be leaders. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I know it's been a very powerful 30 minutes. This is a huge topic, and we are not going to solve this issue overnight. It's something that we're going to be working on for a while. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Voice of San Joaquin Community Radio on 89.5 on the FM radio. Tracy, California, we see you. Thank you, everyone. If you have it in your will and your power, by the end of the year, give us a donation. We are a community organization that relies on donations to keep our lights on and our doors open and to bring you a powerful community platform. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week on another